you overcome the fear of writing and publishing your book. I offer an online course called Believe You Can Write, and I support you with one-on-one coaching. Get in touch with me if you need help, and please share this podcast with a friend who you know needs to hear these messages, and please review it and leave a comment on the platform you're listening to right now. And today I'm so excited to have Claudia Roth from the UK with me. Claudia is a quantum energy coach and the co-founder of Healing Summit, an event for visionary leaders in hospitality to bring change to how we do business. She facilitates retreats and offers change programs. She is a published author of the guided journal Your 28 Days to Self-Love and I Am Every Woman, a collection of transformative life stories which has grown into a global movement for people to come together in sharing circles. Welcome, dear Claudia.
Thank you, Esther. It's a pleasure and honor being here and to be talking to you today.
So, Claudia, let's talk about your turning moments. You told me you have a lot, but we were talking about maybe one special.
Yes, I think I would like to share a little story with the audience. Because that really was something which started to change my life, but obviously at the time I did not know. My background is luxury hospitality. I was running a large business for Europe, Middle East and Africa. And my life was literally 24/7, 7 days a week, totally engaged with hotels all over the world with my team. I had about 100, just under 100 people working for me. So it was very intense environment and I was thriving on it. I really, really loved it. But then one day, again, I was traveling most days actually. I found myself at the Ritz in Paris. Beautiful, I was allocated a beautiful room. It was a suite. I remember with this large king-sized bed and just a beautiful interior. And I was working, I had meetings back to back and it was late and I realized I was so tired, I fell asleep. The next morning I woke up and I made my way into the bathroom. The bathroom had a window on the right-hand side and everything was marble, double sink with a huge mirror. And as I was walking into the bathroom, I looked at the mirror and I couldn't believe what I was seeing. It was like, wow. I found myself falling asleep on my then BlackBerry, not an iPhone, it was a BlackBerry then at that time. And the BlackBerry left a mark on my right cheek.
Oh.
And I suddenly realized it was like I still feel that sort of there was an energy coming into the bathroom on that red side, disguised through a sense of sunshine, early morning sunshine. And that sort of voice or whatever that was gave me to understand, told me, Claudia, the world outside has changed, but you haven't. And that thought just anchored in my consciousness. And I ignored it, of course, because I was late, sort of was rushing for a business meeting and another big or intense day. But that thought nagged and followed me for quite some time until I realized that things are not the way they should be. And that sort of like unease was knocking on my door more and more. As I said, I was flying and traveling all the time. And suddenly, from one minute to another, I remember on a Friday night, I was boarding a plane from Frankfurt back to my home in London, and I was strapping myself in and getting ready for takeoff. And suddenly, an immense fear took over. I was suddenly frightened. That thought of I'm having to leave the ground, going up in the air, and a intense fear of flying started to creep in this space of, yeah, questioning.
And what was the fear about? Just
Well,
leaving, going by plane, but you were used to flying. So
that's exactly, Esther. I couldn't understand. I had never, ever any fear of flying. I remember I was sitting on planes and the plane was shaking and everybody was like getting really anxious. And Claudia was sitting there and thinking, what's the problem? So I did not know anything like, fear of flying. I did not know. But it was a sign, only in hindsight I understand, was knocking on my consciousness saying, Claudia, remember that moment at the Ritz. Remember the world has changed. Remember it's time for you to change as well. And the more I ignored that knocking, the more intense the fear actually creeped into my life.
how long did it take you to really listen to it?
Oh, some years. Esther, I've been stubborn. I I didn't realize that I couldn't see a way out because my whole life I was very determined. Um, it started even at the age of 15 to build an international career. I achieved the image, the dream I always had. I achieved it, and I couldn't see beyond that dream. It was everything I ever wanted. And how can you give something up which you wanted for something you don't even know what it is? So that was a very uncomfortable space for me. My mind wouldn't allow me to go down. My mind made me stay in the awareness. You know this, you are good at the job. You quite like it. And the fear of flying, I just manage it. But it became so intense that I had to do something.
Did you feel happy at that time?
I felt no. I I started to question life. I started to question everything actually. But I was happy the moment I was able to do my job. That was a contradiction. There was no unhappiness with the job. There was a questioning of who am I, came about very quietly, disguised in different forms and different ways.
And where did you receive this sign, the final sign that you have to give up? Or
Oh, that there were so many signs, but Claudia was so stubborn. She ignored, she pushed signs away. She couldn't see through her own illusions until another turning point in my life, actually. And I was still working, I was still flying high. And I say this fondly because that part of Claudia did not know anything better than working hard. So I don't want to be hard with her. It was part of what she knew best. But one day, we actually, my company, had an annual convention in New Delhi. And normally I would never mix holiday with pleasure. But on this occasion, I hadn't been to India and I decided it would be good to go on holiday afterwards. So with my husband, so I spoke to a colleague of mine, client of mine actually. We had lunch and business review. And after the business review, I said, I would like to spend 2 weeks on holiday in India. I would like to see this, this, this. Didn't realize the immense, the vastness of the country. So he organized, or he created an itinerary. And on that itinerary, there was a stop in Pondicherry. And I had never heard of Pondicherry. So I went back to my husband and I said, this is our itinerary. And my husband said, why are we going to Pondicherry? I said, I have no idea, but you know what? We are flexible. Let's go to Pondicherry. Okay. We went to Pondicherry, and my client had organized a meeting. And I thought, okay, I'm on holiday. But for me, when you are in that career, so you don't, it's not, because you're on holiday, you don't work. You just go and have the meeting. So I remember we had arrived in Pondicherry, and the next morning, the meeting was scheduled for 10 o'clock in that place. So Claudia left with her necklace and, getting herself in her business outfit and thinking, okay, luxury hotel, what am I selling here in terms of a luxury hotel? But anyway, I left it open. And then I went into this place, and I was sitting there for a moment waiting for the person I had the meeting with. His name was Vijay. And two big pictures of two, I can only say at the time, saints looked at me. I thought, very interesting, an office building with such a prominence of, sort of like saintly like people in that picture. Anyway, the gentleman came, and we had a little bit of a chit chat, as one does. And then he said to me, he asked me, after a very few minutes only, he asked me, what is the purpose in your life? And I thought, I was like, woo, I couldn't quite get my head around it, because here I was selling luxury hotels, and then I'm being asked what is the purpose of my life. And I thought, oh my God. And it was sheer desperation. I didn't have an answer. I said, well, I'm working hard and I'm paying taxes. I mean, it was, and I knew that this answer was totally inappropriate, but I just did not know what to say. I was overwhelmed, and I felt I needed to say something. So when he asked me this, I suddenly realized that I may not really understand who I am, because if I don't even know what my purpose is, other than working in having a career, in the context he was then exploring that question with me, I knew that something deeper, more profound is perhaps awaiting me. So I left the meeting, and then I did some research, and I realized only later, and later I realized that I was actually speaking to the chairman of the Sri Aurobindo ashram. So I wasn't at a business meeting. I was actually meeting the gentleman who runs an ashram in Pondicherry. And that sort of like the sheer understanding that I was put there for that question to really hit me was a major turning point in my life.
And what did you do when you
then something and then something else really interesting happened. I went back, of course, ignored everything, as Claudia does, because it was again too overwhelming. It's like, oh my God, this is too big of a question. And she got back into her routine, and she started to work again and try to forget it. But obviously, something in me wouldn't let me, inverted commas, forget it. So for whatever strange reason, I was drawn to return to India. And the ashram is affiliated, if this is the right words, with a spiritual community called Oroville. So it's a community, about 4,000 or 5,000 people live there. And the aim of the community is human unity. So I decided that would be a cool idea to go there. And I had the idea of writing a book. Now, don't ask me how this idea came or whatever. I don't know. Anyway, I asked somebody whether they could put a note in the newsletter. I wanted, now this is the interesting part, Esther, I wanted to have help with somebody who had a spiritual understanding, a spiritual insight, because I wanted to write a book merging business with spirituality. Realizing I did not know anything about spirituality, but I knew a lot about business. So I thought, okay, that's okay, you know, get help for that part you don't know. So an announcement was made for me, and a couple of people responded, and one gentleman particularly responded. He said, I normally don't respond to these messages, but I feel called to respond, and we continued our dialogue. And I said, okay, I'm coming to Oroville then, and it would be wonderful to meet you. Okay. And then another story. Can I share it, or should I let you talk?
No, go ahead. Claudia.
So I arrived in Pondicherry, still in this sort of like luxury space. Obviously, as you know from your time, from your experience, India is very different. And I took a taxi and I went to meet the man who I had a dialogue with. Now, what I didn't realize is that he lives in the deep forest of Oroville. I did not have any idea about this man, nothing. And the closer I got to the forest, the more anxiety I got, because I thought, my God, nobody knows where I am. Nobody. My husband, nobody. So I arrived in the forest, and there was one house vacant over there. I thought, okay, that must be the house, obviously. So I remember I was desperate. I said to the driver, you stay here. No lunch. Stay here. I was scared because I suddenly felt totally exposed. So I went to this house in high heels with my pearl necklace, white trouser, and it was monsoon. Now I'm surely that says it all. I was just in a different world. So I knocked at the door. I said to the gentleman, I called him VJ because there's no doorbell or anything like that. So I called, VJ, it's Claudia. And then the man opened, and I got really nervous because it was such a strange situation. Anyway, to cut a very long story short, he invited me in. I was sitting on this balcony, beautiful view into nature. And he didn't ask me anything. We were just sitting quietly, and it was very uncomfortable because obviously, you know, you are used when you don't know somebody, you chit chat. And no, he went into a deep presence. I felt really uncomfortable, and I realized that this is not just an ordinary conversation. And you know, to cut a long story short, what the key message he gave me, which changed my life, made me understand, or he asked me to look in the mirror and to ask me or to share what I was seeing, the person I was seeing there. And obviously I could only see the business Claudia, the person who made herself, you know, up to be respected, etc. And he allowed me to see that my self-image is actually that what, yeah, what needs to dissolve in order for the true me to come through. And that really set me off onto a journey.
This is so beautiful, Claudia. Wonderful how you tell your story. Love it. We could go on for hours, I think. So let's return to our audience. If someone feels now it knocks at her or his door when he or she is listening to your story, what would you recommend to these people?
What I would recommend is listen to the knocking on the door. Don't ignore it. No matter what your mind tells you, don't ignore it. Be open for it. Be curious. Don't close the door.
And it's so scary. How did you cope with your fear? What helped you?
That is another story. Yeah. But what I realized is that the fear was associated with me no longer feeling connected to myself. It was not to myself in the sense that I started that process of inner change. And because I was up in the air so often, I lost the relationship to Mother Earth. So it's another story how what happened in that space.
And nowadays, how do you ground yourself, Claudia?
Nowadays, my life has totally changed. I mean, there is really actually nothing from the past.
What is your morning ritual, for example?
What I do is first thing is I have my hot water, and then I go into my meditation room, and then I meditate in silence for 20 minutes. Minimum 20 minutes, sometimes longer, it depends, but 20 minutes is the minimum. And then what I do is I usually pull a card just to get a sense of what the theme of the day may be. But most importantly, I anchor my awareness every morning in the teaching of A Course in Miracles, which I have been doing the second year. And that is just an incredible, beautiful inner discovery. And afterwards, I soul journal. Mm-hmm. So I take the teaching, the wisdom of A Course in Miracles deeper into application in relation to my own life. And then I write. I write a lot. I write articles. I have a community where I share the ever emerging wisdom from that place of inner stillness.
Beautiful. Thank you so much for sharing. Is there something you would like to tell our audience, just as another guidance for their journeys? Or
yes, I would. What I've learned is the power of the mind. The mind has its agenda. It's very important. The mind is important to exist in the day-to-day world, but the mind is to be observed when we are on a path of self-growth, of transformation. It is a space of it's a powerful place where it can keep us away from hearing the knock on our door. So I would recommend to actually always see life as an adventure beyond the noise of the mind, and find moments in our days where we take some time out to, ground ourselves. So go for a walk or whatever. Only in stillness can grace touch us.
Beautiful, beautiful. So thank you so much, dear Claudia, for having been here today.
Thank you, Esther, for doing what you do, giving, sharing of stories so that everybody can find their own journey through our own complexities, and they're different. And fear is certainly a topic which we all suffer from and we can all learn from.
And thank you so much, dear listener, for helping to spread the word about this podcast and helping those who need to hear these messages. Have an amazing day.